springs are backed up by a wire. And so you just check and make sure it's all in the factory condition. Make sure nothing's out of whack. I've seen some of these get smacked in shipping and actually knock the ball joint off. So you just look over it and make sure everything's put together and looks like it's seated properly. Then you want to check the motor, the mounts, the rubber mounts for your muffler. The left side is soft, the right side is hard. There's two different firmness of mounts for your muffler. Again, if you get parts, you only buy them from the dealer, the distributor. That's me. So I can make sure you get the right part. You want to make sure that those muffler mounts are secure. The one that would be the most common to come loose would be the right side. And so you want to just keep an eye on those muffler mounts. I mean, there's a lot of vibration on a two-stroke because you got one cylinder, and it's not possible to balance a one-cylinder motor perfectly. There's always going to be some sort of a vibration there. So you have to pay attention to things like that and just keep an eye on them. And as long as you just keep an eye on them, I mean, it's pretty easy to catch things like that. You know, you take off. If there's something rattling, it should be pretty obvious. You hear something rattling or a change in pitch in the background when you're flying. You hear something going banging around, something ain't right. Oh, land, figure out what's going on, and figure it out. And as always, always fly in a way where if your motor dies, you have a safe place to land within glide distance. You land into the wind. Piece of cake. So you land without the motor pretty much every time anyway. Although we do land motor on, we're going to start by landing, you know, the motor's going to be idle. Okay, next one is your throttle. Throttle's the next little one. And of course, we're taking lots of time on this. You can go over this really, really quickly when you're just kind of doing it on your own. Right before you start your motor, you want to check and make sure your throttle is working properly and it is going to the full stop. So it's all the way on, it's all the way off, all the way on, all the way off. So your throttle linkage is working properly. You got to make sure that that screw is tight. You don't want your throttle cable coming loose in flight. That would be a major boner. Or an oopsie, sorry. Not the terminology there. There you go. Okay, so that's good. And obviously, when you go to start it, you want to make sure it's not locked wide open full throttle. That's kind of a bad problem.
Yeah, if it goes 360, would it give us a little throttle?
The what?
Because it's a cable. If you're doing a 360 on these,
nope.
I just want to make sure, you know what I mean?
Nope.
Because it's a cable, you know what I mean?
Well, that is a factor, and we put just enough play in there at the factory to try and make sure that when you do this, you're not pulling throttle. Because yes, if it's super tight and you do this right here, you can actually increase the throttle.
Yeah.
So if you notice your RPMs are changing when you move your throttle cable, you want to go in there and put just a teeny smidgen bit of slack in it. So there's just enough so it's it's nice and purdy.
You don't want it super tight because it, you know what I mean?
Correct.
And then you got 2,000 RPM instead.
Bingo. Good point. There you go. And then of course you got the kill switch. Okay. And of course make sure that that's working. I mean, you can check it with the motor running. You just barely touch it and make sure the motor, you know,
and it kills it up or down, right?
Up or down is kill. On the electric start units, up is start, down is kill. But on the pull start units, there's no electric start, so we just wire it both ways. Either way kills it. If you couldn't stop it with that, you can just reach through and pop your spark plug cap, which is not that big of a deal.
Could you flood it by pushing that?
You could do that as well. You can press the button and that will flood it, and that will also kill the motor. Okay. You could also reach down and rip your fuel hose off, but that will take some time for the motor to die, but it'll work. So any of those details, all of the above. Throttle. Check, make sure your throttle's good. Check your linkage. Make sure it's smooth. It's not catching on anything. Another one is when you stand up, you don't want your throttle in your hand. That's another big issue. People reach down and they start pushing up and they start ripping on the throttle cable. And if you push on this, it can unseat the cable. Again, the FlatTop has so many little attention to detail things from years and years of experience. No other units have all these little cool things. I mean, we've got all sorts of little details. We're heat shrinking it on to try and make sure it's there. It's the strongest throttle, so you're not going to rip it out. Some you'll just rip the cable right out of the bottom. It's kind of, they're weak. This you could pick up the whole unit by that little cable right there. It's very, very strong. I invented this one myself, piece by piece. But anyway, if you pull the cable really hard, you could possibly unseat your throttle cable. And if it pops out, then it could be locking your throttle at a higher RPM. And you go to start it, that would be bad. If you notice you do have any issues, you can hold your throttle rocker arm and pull the trigger, and that can reseat the system. But you want to pay attention to it and make sure that is nice and tight. Okay, we primed it, but we did it quite a while ago. Everybody clear prop? So we'll see if she actually starts.
Yeah.
If it sits for 10 minutes or so, you might have to reprime it. If it doesn't start right away, you're going to want to reprime it. I pushed it and pulled a few more times. I kind of figured it was going to start. We heard the belt squealing as I pulled it. Again, you hear any little squeak and squeal, we probably need to look and tighten the belt.
Don't put your fingers.
Do your motor run up. If it's been sitting for 10 minutes or more, you might have to reprime it. Depends on how sealed the carburetor is. Some will sit for 3 days and not need to be reprimed. Some will need to be reprimed in 5 minutes. It just totally depends on the unit. They're just a little bit different.
There's the wind direction right there.
Yeah. So keep an eye on the priming basically and keep it primed. Okie dokie, let's see. So basically you just go over every piece and system, checking everything out. Super important, your fuel, make sure you mix your fuel, 32:1, Redline oil. You can use different types of oil, but the Redline really is the best. From years of experience, that's what I would use.
How do you tighten the belt?
To tighten the belt, you loosen this right here. You loosen this nut here, and then you put an Allen wrench in the center of the prop, and it's on an eccentric. So as you turn it, the knob will go up and down. And so you just tighten it and then bolt those back down and tighten them down. So it's pretty darn easy. The belt actually seems that seems pretty good. So
Rain.
yeah.
Where's the button again?
Just felt the drop.
Prime button is right on the back of the carb, right there.
There's no bird.
Yeah.
I guess it is.
So you squeeze the primer bulb without doing anything. Just squeeze that fairly hard. Try and fill the fuel filter as full as you can. Oh, we didn't really go through our priming process. Hold on just a sec. Everybody clear on this side again. Okay, so it's been started, so now it should start up piece of cake. So basically, once you've warmed it up and everything, after that, it should start piece of cake, super easy. So once you've warmed it up on the ground, usually you can put it on your back, stand up. You can start it when it's on your back. You can also put it on. I mean, I can get in it and stand up now with it running as well. You can do it that way as well. Okay, now for our motor run up, once we get it running, you want to run it for a while and keep an eye on your fuel filter. If you start running at full throttle and your fuel filter goes empty, it'll run out of gas. So basically, if it starts running out of gas, you just reach down, boom, hit your primer bulb, and prime it again while it's running. Then you run it a little longer, you watch your fuel filter and make sure it's holding a constant level. It's not going to stay full And it can be fairly close to empty, but it has to maintain a level. So you keep running it until you can run it full throttle for a good 15-20 seconds or so, and it maintains a constant level of fuel in that fuel filter. And if it's going down, if it's still running out of fuel, you just reach down and squeeze the primer bulb while it's running, and then keep running it a little longer. So when you first start it up, after it's been sitting, or when it's brand new basically, you've got to purge the air kind of through the fuel system. And so you might have to squeeze the primer bulb a couple of times while you're running it to get that going and get it all running smooth. But once you can run it full throttle for a good 20-30 seconds and the fuel is maintaining level, then you should be good to go. And of course, right before you take off, you should do your motor run up. So basically you lean way forward with the motor on your back, go full throttle, and listen for any rattles. Feel the thrust, feel how strong that thrust is. You do your motor run up right before you launch, full throttle. The other thing you check is you hammer the throttle all at once and make sure it revs up and doesn't bog. So you make sure you got instant engine response as well. Get it running really good right there, and then bam, you stand up and then you launch. These run so well, sometimes we'll just do the motor run up and not do the power run up. But officially, you should do your motor run up right before you launch. Make sure it's running really smooth and it'll hold that RPM, and it's not going to hiccup and bog the second you launch. Two strokes need to warm up, so you want to make sure it's warm before you take off, because when you first start it, if it's cold, it can hiccup and run like crap for the first 10, 20, 30 seconds or so. You don't have to run it up for like 20 minutes.